Hi everyone. Today I'm doing surprise surprise yet another book review of one of the late fraud Dr. Beatrice Sparks's books. This was her final book published in the year 2005, Finding Katie, and this is based off of a blog post which I originally published on the 26th of August 2013. And when I read Rick Emerson's excellent book Unmask Alice, which I do have a previous video of, you can go check that out. It's in my book reviews playlist, and I am also planning to start compiling a playlist of all the videos I have done about Dr. Beatrice Sparks, because I've done so many videos about her at this point. And anyway, he points out this is perhaps her most personal book. Like, for example, she uses her middle name Ruby for one of the characters and a bunch of other names which are drawn from her own real life and different, like circumstances she works into it. So beyond the obvious trademark writing style, like the whole I'm worshiping my mommykins thing, that's one of my least favorite things about her books, and the giving the date and time for everything. And I mean the time of the date, I'm all mixed up. She always gives the time of day and an entry, which is like really weird. Like, how many other real life published diaries have you ever read that do that? Or have you ever done that in your own diary? But obviously, besides the usual trademarks of her established writing style, you can also tell it was one of her books, like she was the actual author, because like so many details are drawn from her actual real life. And this is, I've got to hand it to her, this was one of her like marginally better books. Yeah, of course she was still like a grotesque, unethical, dangerous, like fraud and a horrible writer, but some of her books, they're like, relatively more tolerable, and they're not quite as obnoxious and like heavy-handed. And I guess maybe she was kind of slowing down the fire and brimstone garbage as she was, getting over the hill and edging towards her death. And so let's get on with it. And so, maybe I'm being too soft on this book, but I thought it was marginally better than Beatrice Sparks's horrible usual. There's actually a bit more substance than usual, and I must hand it to her for getting through an entire book without constantly breaking out into excessive italics, exclamation points, and sentences written in all caps. Like, seriously, where did that come from? How could she restrain herself for an entire book like that? Like, what was going on upstairs? It even starts out seeming like it could have been taken from, or at least based on, an actual teen's diary instead of entirely made up. However, there are still a number of suspicious problems. It just reads too much like a book written, in journal form, deliberately and premeditatively, about a specific problem, not drawn from the pages of a real-life teen's journal. How many teen journals has Dr. Sparks really read if she thinks they all focus so exclusively on a certain issue in their lives? None of her characters have much of any character development. They're all defined by their issues, like little more than names on a page, saying things and doing things. And particularly like Kim with the eating disorder, Nancy is dying of AIDS, Alice the druggie, Jay the Satanist, Sammy the ex-gangbanger, like Annie is, knocked up at 14 years old. So that's just basically all of her characters. Like, they really have no character development. Even the secondary characters, it's just like she wanted us to remember these teens by their like problems instead of, there's other things going on in any person's life, even when there's a huge overwhelming issue. Like, for example, I would have no idea, for example, what is Nancy's like favorite book or her favorite actor, or just things like Kim. Well, I haven't read the Kim book yet, I'm sorry, but I still do have to get to that one, take one for the team, or what, or I haven't read Go Ask Alice yet either, but I've read pretty much all of her other books. So basically just like, what does Annie like doing in her spare time? What are her hopes and dreams, her deepest values? Or, what does, Jenny want to do when she grows up? No, it's just like these like issues are totally defining the teenagers. Despite being a bit better developed than usual, the characters still seem like one-dimensional cardboard cutouts. Most teen journals are also composed of a lot more mundane, he said, she said type chatter, writing about things besides problems in their lives. The frequent gaps in the narrative, like having several weeks between some entries, also add to the problems. And like Sparks's other characters, Katie also seems a lot younger than she's supposed to be. Katie is a student at a Catholic girls' school, rather embodying the stereotype of the sheltered, innocent Catholic schoolgirl, and living with her parents in a huge mansion, surrounded by wealth and luxury. And I should add, one of her other characters, Nancy, is also supposedly Catholic, but like looking at both of these books, I'm wondering, did Dr. Sparks ever actually meet any Catholics, or like seriously, do some research onto it or go to a Catholic service or anything, because they just, neither Katie nor Nancy, they just don't seem like actual Catholics. It's just kind of dumping it on the page. Oh, Katie goes to Catholic school, or oh, Nancy went to church and she's Catholic and she's phoning a rape crisis center to ask the nun, oh, did I commit a mortal or a venial sin? Oh, I'm so worried. Oh, I'm so glad rape is only a venial sin instead of a mortal sin. Like, WTF? Like, this woman, she was Mormon through and through. Like, even her supposedly Catholic characters are like nondescript, like Protestant, non-Mormon characters. They just end up seeming like Mormons. Like, she just could not get away from that aspect of herself. And so, Katie's mother is badly abused by her Jekyll and Hyde father. And because of her father's controlling personality, Katie herself has never really been allowed to have friends, associate with boys, or do normal teen things. She gets excited about future possibilities when she and her new friend Jennifer meet two boys, Mark and David, at a museum and secretly begin dating. Katie's father starts paying her unwarranted amounts of attention as soon as he notices she's becoming a young woman. Yeah, like that's a huge trope in badly written erotica. Like, not just, I mean, obviously not always like incest. Like, I mean, incest erotic is like super, super creepy, but just like the whole trope, oh, I never realized my stepsister or stepbrother was so hot until like he or she turned 18 and I'm, wow, that person is so sexy now, like totally overnight. Or just, oh, I never noticed the boy or the girl next door would be a love interest for me or was attractive at all until, oh, now that person has come home from college. Oh, wow, now it's happening. That's just such a stupid, lazy, trope. Feeling starved for love, Katie accepts his sudden lavish attention, not realizing till it's too late that he's behaving extremely inappropriately. That's yet another Sparks trope, the like super unrealistically, unbelievably like naive teenager who like has to like kind of stumble into figuring things out. Oh, I just heard a phone message, or I overheard my boyfriend talking to someone. I didn't like realize this myself because I'm just like mentally, 5 years old. Things come to a head when he finds out she's been dating and dumps her in a very rundown area of LA. While Katie is praying before her planned suicide, she's found by a Salvation Army man. He takes her to a shelter, and from there she gets put into foster care. Sadly, the depictions of foster care seem to be pretty accurate instead of, as is Dr. Sparks' usual forte, made up or wildly exaggerated to scare her target audience. As realistic as this aspect appears to be, however, this scenario just doesn't fit together at all. Why doesn't anyone ever attempt to contact the police or search for her? We're supposed to believe her horrid father just throws her onto the streets, and no one ever is suspicious about why she just suddenly disappeared? And why doesn't Katie herself want to go home? At one point she calls her dad's secretary, who's happy to hear from her, but Katie can't even tell her where she is, nor does this secretary ever contact authorities. And like, seriously, she's like rich and wealthy and no one wonders, oh, where did this like rich girl go? This is a prominent family everyone knows in this neighborhood, but well, we'd better go search for her. Again, like it's just like she's trying to make it seem like, oh, there's no way we could trace these characters. Like, for example, like Nancy is just buried in a wooden grave in the woods out in Idaho, so that she just would like throw off people who might, look for the grave and realize, oh, she wasn't a real girl after all. And though Katie is frustrated, depressed, and angry, she adapts a little too quickly to foster care and a crummy school 2 grades behind her actual grade. She lied about her age when she was found. Seriously, that would be the ultimate in humiliation for pretty much like all normal teenagers, like being forced to like not skip a grade, like repeat a grade. Like, no one wants to do that, and particularly if you're put 2 years behind. And this isn't just, for example, you're moving to a whole new country after for whatever reason you're immigrating and you don't know the language very well, and you might know the language, but you just like are really behind in a lot of other subjects because you like maybe weren't going to school for a couple of years because of a war, and you like have to be 2 or whatever grades behind until you've caught up, or maybe you just will unfortunately end up graduating when you're like much older than most seniors. But like, if you could avoid that, like, why would you deliberately do that, or just nonchalantly accept, oh yeah, I'm just 2 grades behind, like that's totally fine with me, like I'm not humiliated at all, like seriously, WTF. Wouldn't most teens, particularly if they came from education, manners, and money, like Katie is always talking about, like low-key bragging about herself, be fighting tooth and nail to go home? Instead, she focuses on helping the other foster kids to become as mannered, educated, ambitious, and socially skilled as she is, with many mentions of prayer, religion, and repentance, of course, yet another Dr. Sparks specialty. Now, I could see this had Katie been a child, but for a 16-year-old to just adapt that readily without a fight, coupled with her juvenile attitude and writing style, it just defies plausibility. And again, why would anyone be expected to believe a teenager from a rich, privileged family can just disappear with no one ever investigating and starting a search? The ending is also a bit hard to swallow, given the grim reality foster teens face. Katie gets adopted. Oh, surprise, surprise, at the age of 18 when she's almost about to age out of foster care. Yeah, I realize this does happen, but it just doesn't happen nearly as much. Most people, they want, oh, I just want to adopt a cute cuddly baby or a toddler. I don't want a whole teenager, like practically an adult. Although this is very important for teenagers. You shouldn't like overlook them if you're thinking about adopting or fostering. Of course, it's going to be a much different experience, but the teenager, you don't stop needing a family just because you turn 18. That teenager probably definitely will want someone to come home to for the holidays and celebrate birthdays with, and have like surrogate grandparents if he or she decides to have children, and just all sorts of things you take for granted if you like have your own like biological or adoptive family already. So it's definitely, you should not overlook like older teens in foster care. But so I guess that was kind of a good message, even if it was very realistic, because like teens that age, they just don't get adopted nearly as often as like the much younger like children and babies. It's hard to believe how many of these younger kids so easily come under Katie's wing and quickly adopt to her way of thinking and living. But again, Sparks had a poor grasp of just how modern teens think, act, write, talk, and behave. There's a bit of supplementary material in the back on child abuse, crisis hotlines, abductions, and throwaway children. The back matter is skimpier than usual, not as extensive as the appendices in her books on subjects like AIDS and teen pregnancy, but again, maybe, old age was slowing her down for the same reason she somehow, miracle of miracles, managed to get through an entire book without the, entire sentences and entire paragraphs in all caps. Oh, don't forget the excessive italics, and like at least 10 exclamation points, and put them all together, constantly. So sometimes people, like old frauds, sometimes, just slow down with old age, or maybe she was starting to forget or whatever. But anyway, this is one of her marginally better books. Still not one I would recommend, but at least it's not as like garbage in the toilet, like negative 20 stars like I would rate like Annie's Baby or Treacherous Love. And I'm told Kim Empty Inside is also one of her more worst books. One of her worst books. I'm sorry, I blanked on that term. I definitely still have to get to that one. I can't wait to rip the rest of her books a new one and do some like blog posts and videos on them. Thank you very much for watching. I unfortunately haven't had time to do a lot of like serious long form videos recently because I'm just working on finishing up one of my works in progress. Finally, the finish line is in sight, so I just obviously devoting most of my free time to writing instead of making videos. But hopefully like people will enjoy the cute cat shorts I've been putting out, and stick with the channel, even though I just not uploading nearly as much as I have in the past. So please leave a comment, like let me know if you've ever read any of this Dr. Sparks the Frauds books, or if you like ever seen like Finding Katie, or just like if you've heard any other things about this, like fraud or other like fake teen journals or fake books in general. And please consider subscribing if you haven't already. And thanks again for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks. Bye.